Actually, it's the lead play in our offense.
Double tackle, take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, you drive down the first man who is inside. Pull back and tell him to take the first man outside the offensive tackle. No one shows. Go right by them and field inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, that's inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. So look at this play. What we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. I'm joined alongside Jacob from the Packernet Fantasy Podcast. We got Tim live in Green Bay, and we're excited about talking a little bit of injury report, get you guys some updates on what the injuries are looking like going into this weekend's game there against the Denver Broncos. And then we've got a couple articles that we're going to hit on, too, that Jacob happened to find, hitting on some pretty good topics, potential players that might be on the trading block for the Packers. Understand, everything we talk about today, we are not reporting. We are not saying, we're not creating rumors these players are to be traded. We're simply going off an article that are saying, hey, here are 5 players that might potentially be traded. Okay, so I definitely want to put that out there. And we'll kind of talk about if we think it makes sense for the roster now and into the future for potentially trading those specific players. So we'll hit that. We'll also hear from Jordan Love real quick in the locker room. He was talking about, I'll let the video speak for itself, but Matt Schneidman had an awesome video he tweeted out there on X. And we're also, like I said, on the article on the trade. And then we're going to hit on an article on Joe Barry where someone wrote about the, quote, embarrassing excuse that Joe Barry gave for having Preston Smith lined up on Devontae Adams. So, and he goes on to roast Joe Barry throughout the rest of the article as well, which I think is funny. No one ever mentions kind of the points per play and yards per play that the Packers sit at right now. Funny how none of that gets mentioned in the grand scheme of things, but we do want to pick 1, 2, 3 plays out of the game and go, what the hell is this guy doing? But Tim, how you doing tonight? Jacob, what's going on, fellas?
Happy to be here, man. It's always interesting, right? I love it.
Jacob got in here to not stir the pot. He's like, let me find the article that would get Clayton most fired up.
As soon as I saw the message, I'm like, oh, here we go.
I was going to say, it's not tonight. If you remember, I woke up super early this morning. I had one of those days where you just randomly wake up and you can't get back to sleep. So I started looking through, and I will admit that they're not like it's not like tabloids or clickbait stuff. I will admit that both of the articles, well, I should say that one of the articles was written well and had a justification as to why they had some of their opinions. The other one was a little bit more just mudslinging. So what I did is I read the first one and thought, oh, this is kind of an interesting, 5 players that possibly could be on the trade block for the Packers. And then it goes through and it doesn't bash them. It doesn't really talk, well, we'll get into it, but it doesn't bash them. It doesn't talk about, why they suck or blah, blah, blah. It's basically more analytical, financial, and what the Packers like to do kind of as a pattern that we've noticed over the last 20, 30 years. And then you get to the other one and it's kind of just throwing mud. So as I'm sitting there at like 4:35 in the morning, I'm like, man, I'm going to send this to Clayton right now. Get started. I don't know what time you actually read the one, but the one that we'll talk about, I knew as I read it, I was laughing. And I started thinking, like, if I could play devil's advocate, I'm going to bring this point up and this point up. And then I will admit, Barry did not do himself any favors by the quote that he put out there. But I knew it was going to get Clay ready. Better than a Red Bull. Dude probably snapped right out of bed.
Yeah, and the quote itself, when I read the quote, I went, it's a BS quote. You can tell he's just he's going, put the blame on me. Put the blame on me. Yeah. Which is what every great leader does. You absorb criticism and you deflect praise. That's what.
Or have you ever been in a fight with your old lady or your girlfriend, and after a while you're just like, you know what? Yeah, everything's my fault. You're right. I'm to blame. I suck. That's kind of
right now, man. You don't even got to go through all that. All you've got to say is the 2 magical words.
You're right.
We're right.
Yeah.
Gosh, you're right. Throwing a gall there. God.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going. You kidding me?
Now that I think about it, You're right.
I want to give a shout out to Jeff in the chat. We got United Bates, Boz in here, the number one Packer fan. What's up, guys? Stephen Smith, Red Mo, Dead Fish, Mark in the house. Appreciate you guys dropping through for sure. All right, let's just get right down to it. Let's talk injury report first. It seems like I say this every week, and then game day, I go, what happened? Why is everybody inactive? But it feels like we're as healthy as we have been all year long, obviously minus the all-world left tackle David Bakhtiari. But let's kind of get into it here. Rob Domofsky tweeted this out earlier today, and hopefully you guys can see it. He said, post-bye practice, Aaron Jones, obviously got the hamstring, was back on the field after missing last Monday's game. That's a check, right? Good deal. Quay Walker, knee injury, and Devondre Campbell, ankle, were rehabbing outside, okay? Darnell Savage's calf and Zane Anderson, hamstring, were back practicing as well, okay? So just wanted to kind of mention that. And then as you look at the actual injury report here, gang, we've got Zane Anderson, hamstring, limited participation. Devondre Campbell did not participate. Elton Jenkins, limited participation. Aaron Jones, limited participation. Darnell Savage, limited participation. Eric Stokes, limited. Quay Walker, limited. And Devontae Wyatt, limited. So the one that I would say there's probably a really good chance that he's going to miss, and Tim kind of pointed this as we were talking offline, probably not going to see Devondre Campbell. That would be my guess. However, you never know. And I think Matt LaFleur actually said in one of the other tweets that was tweeted out, I might have actually had the wrong tweet up there, but he basically said that he thinks that Devondre Campbell will be questionable, maybe a game time type decision, that type of thing. So with that being said, in the injury report on the Denver Broncos side, pretty much the only one that kind of comes into play here is their tight end, Greg Dulcich, I think is how you say it. He did not participate. Kareem Jackson, limited. And then Justin Simmons, safety, was limited as well. So they're a little bit banged up at the safety position, it seems like. But Jacob, what do you think about that injury report, man? Do you think Aaron Jones will play? Some of those names on it, what stands out to you?
Man, like you said, I'm just gun shy now. Every time I see that injury report, it's like, man, we're looking good. Everything's going to be great. And then, like you said, it comes Saturday night, Sunday morning, and they're like, oh, yeah, every single starter you have isn't going to play. And it's like, okay, well, that's great. I did watch a few interviews before we got on here live. Jones basically seems like he's champing at the bit. Had somebody message me. It's champing. Not chomping, champing at the bit.
Okay. Hey, champing. Let's go.
But let's see, where was it? Jones, they were basically asking like how he feels, and he said, I felt great last week. I wanted to play. And then he said that basically it was he said, I know what I did wrong. He said it was like in a pregame warm-up when the ball was just a little bit outside of where he was comfortable extending to, and that he tried to go make a play on it. And that's like, so if you just have to like extend and like, oh, that did it, like how do you expect to go live in a game? But he says that he feels great now, that he's ready to go, that he's excited. You love Aaron Jones, dude. He is just like the ultimate team player. He kept talking about how, what it's going to be like for him to get back out there. And he's like, I don't care about me. He's like, I just want to help the team. I feel bad that I've been not being able to be there for him. Like I've been watching him in practice, just sitting here waiting. And I love Aaron Jones so much. It's going to be, I don't know how we break away from him. We can maybe have that conversation a little bit later once we touch on that article, because right now I don't see how you let the dude walk. Restructure that contract for sure, but see if there's something we can do there.
Got it. Tim, what do you think, buddy?
Overall on the report, I think what's really cool, I believe this is the second week that we have no Christian Watson on the injury report. So, a name we're not seeing, which is good news. And Eric Stokes Jr. is going to be one to keep an eye on. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are. I was wondering about him. Do we maybe see him this week or not? I think it's 1 week left before they have to activate him, right? They have to sign him to the active roster, or they can practice squad him, or they got to do something with him, right? Otherwise he has to go back on PUP. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I think they've got another full week. And if he does not hit the active roster, they have to put him on injured reserve for the rest of the year, if I understood.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah,
so
which
he'd be
means
done.
he's going to be done. Yeah. But I think I kind of feel like he's going to be out there this week. Limited role, maybe as a dime back, that type of thing. But I think he'll probably suit up. I hope he does. And again, I'm not expecting anything crazy with Eric Stokes. You know, the last time we seen him on the field, he was struggling pretty bad. Now I can't imagine that you have, you know, almost a full year off battling a horrible injury. From what I understand, was 2 different injuries at the same time, rehabbing back from that and then coming back better than when you left. So I think it's important that they do ease him in, but maybe it's something that if he can get some playing time this week and then, you know, you ramp him up in the next 3-4 weeks, maybe by the end of the season, he's back into that boundary role. And maybe you do put Rasul back into the nickel, or maybe even move Jair around in the nickel as well. So,
You know, I could speak to that, at least from what I saw at camp when he was rehabbing at training camp and being the only guy in that group, you know, by the time Rashawn was starting to progress, and, you know, it was just Stokes back there by himself with the training staff and strength and conditioning. But I can tell you that every single time that defense was running something or working on scheme, he would stop and turn and walk over, and he was involved. Like, so I'm hoping that maybe the time, like you said, you know, well, what's really going to change with all this time away? Hopefully a lot of film, hopefully watching film of himself and maybe looking at mistakes that he may have made in the past, along with staying keyed in and actively participating in what's going on with the play calls on the defense. So hopefully, if he does see limited action, you know, he's not going to look like a fish out of water. You know, it's like he hasn't played football in a long time. You know, we understand that, but I think Stokes takes it seriously out there, and I hope for the best with him, man. I really do.
I agree, man. When you see him on the sidelines too on games, you almost notice him every single game. Like, he is very engaged. He's very, you can just tell he's one of those guys that if he can put it together on the field, first of all, stay healthy, and then put it together on the field, he would be, you know, one of those glue guys in the locker room. There's no doubt. You can just tell he's just got that. You can see why the Packers liked him, right? His athletic score was through the freaking roof. He played very high competition there in the SEC, and then you turn right around and you look at his attitude and just the type of person he is. He's definitely one of those guys that could be something special. Let's just hope he can put it together. Again, we'll see if he gets a little playing time this Sunday. So Zane Strong in the chat said, "What's up, Clayton, Tim, and Jacob? Happy Hump Day." Yeah, man, appreciate you swinging through, Zane.
Yeah.
Some of these other comments I'm going to get to in a second because it's going to apply a little bit later. That's okay, though. You guys keep firing away. 2-0 for this in the chat says, "I really don't care what we do. If Aaron Jones ever plays for a team other than Green Bay, I riot. And at that point, and only that point, will I want Goot fired." So 2-0 for this said, "Hey, man, do what you want, Goody, but if you touch my Aaron Jones, you are gone." Gone. And of course, Zane Strong in the chat here says 65% healthier team this week. I hope
65%. 65.
Me too.
Y'all are never gonna let that go. The posse will never let it go. I love it.
It's a staple in this program, which is probably why we do horrible numbers, but that's what we do. That's what we do. All right, let's do this. Let's move on to the Matt Schneidman tweet real quick. I'm going to share the screen. This was Jordan Love in the locker room. I thought this was kind of cool. You know, Matt LaFleur told everybody, hey, pick one thing that you want to work on during this bye week, right? And one of the things, actually, it started last week, and one of the things he wanted to work on was finding completions. But here's QB1 talking about that. Again, this is a tweet from Matt Schneidman over on Twitter.
Obviously, you know, you want to get everybody the ball. We got a lot of weapons. You want to always spread the ball out. But, you know, I think more of it's just consistency and finding those completions and getting the playmakers the ball in space so they can operate and make guys miss. And, you know, not trying to, you know, always trying to find that big play and force the ball downfield, but just getting the ball in guys' hands quickly. I think that's been the biggest thing. But, you know, you always want to try and get everybody as many touches as you can. Spread the ball out, spread the wealth. But no, there's not one person in particular I wish, you know, we get the ball to more.
All right, so obviously Jordan's simply pointing out there, yeah, we're looking to take the checkdowns basically. I need to get better at that, and we've seen it all over the tape, right? All over the tape. What you got there, Jacob?
No, it's just funny that you literally, I wrote down like that, almost that whole clip on my notes, hand wrote it because I'm like, oh, this is definitely Clayton will want to hear this. This is going to be good. And, so, yeah, I thought that was obviously what I thought was highlighted. I just put notes. Basically, he needs to take the checkdowns, take what's there, and not force for the big play. And I wrote that I thought it was hilarious because they said, like, is there any specific player basically you need to get more involved? And that's where it starts. He's like, everyone.
Spread it around.
It shows you a glimpse into the psyche, too, of our quarterback, where we talk about he's developed a really good relationship with Romeo Dobbs, and there might be, if he's got chemistry with any wideout, it's probably Dobbs. But it's like you can tell Jordan's trying to do that with everyone. He's trying to spread that ball around. They're gonna live and die as a team. They're gonna win and lose as a team, like I said. And it's just good to see him reaffirming that and acknowledging what he needs to do. He needs to hit those throws. Bring on the swing pass, right, Clayton? Bring it on. Let's go.
I'm telling you, especially the design swing. And we got Chad Inc. in the house, says, what's up, Clayton and Craig? Man, appreciate you swinging through, Chad. Thank you so much. And Chris in here says, Clayton, keep the heat on Goot. And Coach, I'm assuming what's the C stands for. Yeah. Man, I guess I'm the one charging that hill because there's many people that are still on the, Joe Barry's battered and bruised laying up on the hill. And I'm now trying to deflect to Matt LaFleur a little bit going, hey, look, you guys understand this offense is hot garbage, right? Like we've got a defense that's performing better than they did last year, right? Not world breakers, but performing better than they did last year. And everybody just kind of overlooking the offense, which I do think that's coming around now. But yeah, back to Jordan Love with the swing pass. Those are design swings, Tim. And the reason we know that's because you can watch the lead, right? You can see the lead blocker. They're not in a route. They're not in pass protection. They're simply leading the swing and picking up a block, expecting that ball to go to the swing. Now, there is a built-in aspect, a built-in element on the backside, which simply is your number one look, right? Your number one read, a simple concept. If it's high-low, if it's middle close, middle open, okay, is it there? No, hammer the swing. But what Jordan's doing is it's not there. It's not there. Let me look there. No, let me roll towards the swing. Everything gets funneled in, and it just all falls apart. So that's one check down I want to see. Another two is the leaks. Musgrave has been so open in some of these leaks underneath. And the way this defense is playing right now, the reason that there's nothing open down the field, when you've seen Jordan Love throw into triple coverage down the field and it was nowhere near the receiver, is because these defenses are watching. They're watching the same thing that we're watching, guys. And that's why it's so important to watch the tape. And that's why I have nothing to do with anyone who scoffs at someone for watching the tape. Oh, this is one of those tape guys. Yeah, we're the ones actually taking the time to understand what's going on the field, rather than just listen to this person or that person rant and rave about something they haven't even seen other than the one pass through while they were drunker than a skunk. Like you got to be able to slow down and kind of see what's actually going on. So what you're seeing is the coverage is watching the same tape we're watching. They're seeing that Jordan's trying to push the ball down the field, They're saying, ignore the leaks. The hell with the leaks. Don't even worry about them. Let's make him prove to us he's going to check it down. Right. And I think that's where Matt LaFleur is catching a little bit too much heat in that regard, because there are players open on some of these concepts underneath, but Jordan's just simply either not knowing where to go with his side adjustment to find them, or he's just refusing to do it and trying to push the ball down the field, which, by the way, Jacob, it sounds a lot like the argument with Rodgers last year. Right? Everybody was going, I don't understand why he's trying to play hero ball. There's something to this Matt LaFleur offense that, first of all, in the West Coast offense, this is how it all started. Bill Walsh, 101, his voice on A Football Life said people look at the West Coast offense as nickel and diamond and just going underneath. What they don't understand is 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time, there's a deep shot on every play. And you looked at that deep shot first, and if it ain't there, then you go back through your reads back underneath. Rather than going shallow, 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 deep, the last thing you want to do is throw late, deep, right? Or deep, late, I should say. So you start deep, work your way back with most of the concepts. I just want to see him spread stuff out. But, yeah. When it comes to him, though, when it comes to Jordan, I'm not ready to give up. I don't want people to take that the wrong way. I'm not ready to give up on Matt LaFleur. It's just frustrating when you see on March 13 personnel out there and 12 personnel consistently. And it's just like, you want to help Jordan Love, spread that thing out a little bit, man. Spread it out, lighten the box. Imagine A.J. Dillon running into that 5-man box we talked about yesterday. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame, guy. You remove the pulling aspect of the offensive line too, and it's just pick a gap straight downhill. That's one thing I've noticed about A.J. Dillon, at least in the last couple of games, is I feel like he's hitting the hole and he's falling forward and he's gaining those yards that aren't there right now. So imagine if you had a light box, right? And you're never going to see a light box if you stay condensed, you stay nasty, and try to force everything underneath like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they adjust. And man, we've got the perfect team to try to adjust to this week, guys. If it don't happen this week with this offense, man, and I feel like Jacob. I feel like it's unfair to the offense because we're putting them in a no-win situation here. Like they could come out and have 400 yards of total offense, and we're probably still going, it's still Denver. That sucks. That's a sucky place to be, right?
Yep. It's like fighting a girl. If you lose, you lost to a girl. If you win, you beat a girl. That was just a saying in high school. One thing I want to bring up real quick, though, with Jordan Love specifically and the bye week and kind of just like we just talked about, whether or not we're going to – this is kind of a make it or break it week for the season, I'd argue, in a lot of different ways. So Jordan Love, when asked if he was staying through these are two tidbits here that I thought were very interesting in different ways. Jordan Love said that he did leave the facility and that he went to go to San Diego to spend time with his girlfriend who had just signed, I believe it was a professional volleyball contract, went and met with them, which I'm not saying, I'm not throwing no shade. I think that's great. You need to leave, get some time. However, I will say I was very surprised, proud, and excited when I saw the Tucker Kraft interview, when Tucker Kraft went on record to say that he did not decide to leave. He wanted to stay over and chill, Emilio. No, I'm not. That he wanted to stay over, that he wanted to hone his craft, play on words, and that he realized that he had a lot of stuff to kind of improve. And that to the point where Matt LaFleur came in and noticed it, because I think LaFleur actually took a few days off from what I'm told too. He was not at the facility. And on like a Friday, he comes in and he sees Tucker Kraft there and he's like, yo, what are you doing? Like, you need to. And he's like, no, I got it. And then eventually it got to the point where he convinced Tucker Kraft to take his lady friend and do a date Mike date and go to Door County for just one day and decompress. And then so they're interviewing him. And I'm like, man, Tucker Kraft has really changed. And like, he's kind of a more humble guy. And like, he ended the interview with basically rounding it out with being like, so I took the day off, but I'm always ready. I don't need a day off. I never need a day off. I'm always ready to go. And, I'm never running around like my head's cut off like a chicken or whatever. And I'm just like, there he is.
That's the guy.
I
got to give him one. Man, Tucker Kraft. Growing and changing every day. You got to love it. Let's see. Right? And yeah, you're right. Emilio in the chat says Jacob's trying to get us canceled. Yeah, trying to put me in the unemployment line over here, Jacob. You see how it is, bro? Let's see. We got a super chat from Boz. Thank you so much for the support, buddy. You are always such a blessing. He said, let's get to 3-3, healthiest we've been all year. Let's go, dude. Let's just go one game at a time. Go get that dub. Go out there and try to embarrass Denver, man. And it's something, too, if we come out and we get to an early lead, guys, we go up 10, 14 points, whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a close game, to be honest with you, because the way this offense is sputtering. But if you do get a lead, put your freaking foot on their throat, dude. Yep. I mean, finish the whole thing, dude. I want to see them absolutely torch the Broncos, mainly because I don't like Sean Payton. But
I'm glad you brought that up, Clayton, because I would love to see what this team does with a 3, 4, 5 score lead on a team.
Oh yeah, that says a lot.
Let's get one early. Let's get a lead early and hang on to it and build on it. And like you said, bring back all gas, no break. Mm-hmm. I want that. I want that Matt LaFleur back. All gas, no break. Simplify. Let's not have 500 tight ends on the field every time we're, going to run a play. Let's, get to 3-3, like Boz said. That's the most important thing. And, Denver does enough to embarrass themselves. So they're going to give us some help. Like you said, Clayton, it could be close. But I definitely see turnovers happening for this defense. So I think they're going to get it done. And I don't care. Win by a point. I don't care. I'm not a gambler. I don't sports gamble or sports bet. So I don't care about the spread. I care about the dub. Just win. So I'll take it 1 or 100, whatever.
Definitely.
Go Pack, go.
Boz, thank you so much for the super chat, bud. We appreciate you. Let's see. Goose in the chat said, "Throw the dang check down, Jordan." I feel like the lady from the live movie about Bobby Orr. I don't even know what he's referring to, but I'm afraid to look into it when it's Goose chat. I'm just telling you right now. Too old for this. From the window to the wow. Jordan Love, please spread the ball. All right, that's good. We get the widest people in here reciting Lil Jon. Dude. It's hilarious, right?
Make those DBs foul.
Y'all about to get DJ Tim out. I'm telling you, man. about to hit. Hot in Zone says Super Bowl bound, man. I hope you're right. My goodness. Give me a toke of what you're hitting over there, my man. Goose said Barry is Randy from South Park. Quote, I didn't hear no bell. Emilio, yeah, you caught on. Says the crew is all here. Yes, they are. You have been warned. No doubt about it. Chad Inc. said, I like what Love said about getting the ball to the playmakers in space. I'd really like to see Reed, Musgrave, and Watson getting the ball sooner and let those guys use their legs. Absolutely. It's what Mike Wall talked about. Use screen passes, right? And here's the thing about screen passes. When you're trying to run screen passes out of condensed formations, way harder, right? That's why you're seeing some of the only screen passes you've seen at this point is a play action rollout, right? Or a play action boot, and then having to throw back across because you got to get everybody outside of that condensed formation. That's about the only way you can run a screen unless you run a mid screen, which we've seen him do one of those and he dirted the ball because it wasn't there, right? So you spread it out 11 personnel, do a little doubles look, a little 2x2 with the Y flex. That's when you're going to have the space you need to hit some of those halfback screens. One of my favorite ways to hit a halfback screen is to flex out, right, and even go trips. You could go trip snub, but you could even start with the running back out wide, bring him in, right, run a little action, and then a screen off the backside. But when you go 3-by on one side, whether it's the tight end side or not, if you go with a 3-by set and you screen off the backside, think of the stress that puts on the defense, right? You can't do that out of the condensed formations because everybody is just right there in the same spot. But yeah, man, I'm with you, Chad. Love to see him get those guys involved really quick. Let's see here. I'm so scared to post anything that or to put anything that Goose says in here.
Put anything that
Goose. You're not actually muted, Goose, but every time I see your name, I swear I'm moving on real quick.
It's like an official with his hand on the flag. Like he's right. Just got his hand on the flag all the time.
Oh, my hat, sling it, right? Cheesehead Murph in the house. Go Pack, go Posse. What's up, my good people? What's up, Murph? Yeah, let me know when you get that jersey, dude. You never know with this mailing service. I know Jacob had a problem with getting his piece of memorabilia out to a listener too, but I used to work for the Postal Service. I spent about 2 years there when I was right out of high school. Oh, yeah. When I was right out of high school. Yeah. I left. I actually left when I was 17 and had to kind of, I don't know how to say, had to get out of the town I was living in because, I was going to end up stuck there more or less. So I moved to Knoxville, close to where Emilio is, and got a job as a part-time. I was working 60 hours a week, but I was what they call a casual employee for the Postal Service. So, man, that is a very interesting place. My brother said, hey, we can get you on full-time, I think, man. Take the postal exam. I looked around and went, I don't want to be any of these people in 10 years. I'm getting the hell out of this joint. No way, sir. Don't want this. But, yeah. All right. So Emilio said, all right, Dan, do you think Tim used his Milwaukee fuel tools to get all that hung up?
Oh, man.
Hey, dude, I love what you did back there, man. It looks absolutely awesome. Dude.
Nice.
Yeah, very simple. Mine's getting cluttered. I'm going to have to do something different. Yours looks clean.
Come on.
No, I like yours. Jacob's looks like a frat house. That's what I like about it. Like, I'm expecting to see the keg over in the corner. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. With the dog laying underneath the hose. Passed out. Let's see what else we got here. Number one Packer fan says, hey, man, I rant and rave when I'm tipsy during a game, then watch Chalk Talk with you guys later. Hey, that's the best of both worlds right there, dude. That is the best of both worlds.
The same thing, man. I'm just
hey, dude, when it's not the Packers playing, there's nothing better than hitting. I've got a Beef O'Brady's up here about 5 miles from the house. I've got a Beef O'Brady's. You have never heard of Beef O'Brady's? It's basically a sports bar. It's obviously, O'Brady's. It's kind of Irish theme. They used to have a sandwich called the Watterson. They got a real good menu. Some of the best wings I've ever had in my life. But you sit at their bar area, and I think there's something like, it's a small space too, which is what I like about it. But there's something like 30 TVs, every NFL game on. So if the Packers aren't playing, I'm with you guys. I'll be having a cold one and eating some wings and that type of thing. But when the Packers are on, dude, I am sober, focused. 90% of the time, the TV's muted. Every time I talk myself into unmuting it, I regret it. So I'll mute it back. But, yeah, nothing wrong with that, man, for sure. All right, let's see what else we got here. God, it got out of control so quick, man. I want to hit everybody's comments, but we're going to go 3 hours if I do. And you guys are this is all nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Let's see here. Let's go to Emilio right here. Bang, just randomly. All love, boys. That'll get Clayton 2 spicy deluxes from Chick-fil-A. What's he talking about? Oh, yeah, the super chat. Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, appreciate
you
that.
saw about the super chat. Yeah.
What that's going to do is throw towards this PC that I had to buy to get this thing cranked up the way we wanted it cranked up.
I've never had Chick-fil-A in my life.
What?
No.
What? Wait, what?
I've never had.
Hold on. What?
Yeah.
Man, you never had.
You don't have any over there?
We don't have one in Hudson, but we have one like in Woodbury, but it's like 20 minutes away. So by the time
bro, it's worth it.
Bro, that's the poultry blessed by Jesus.
Drive 20 minutes, go there.
I had one like 2 minutes away from my house when I lived in Nashville on West End, but I'd always drive past it, and there was a line like around the block. So
that's how you know, Jacob. That's how you know it's good when there's a line. You know, the other thing I do too, I'm going to be a little bit I don't know what the right word is. I'm not going to be politically correct for a second, okay? There's many times I go into a restaurant and I look around, and if everybody's a little bit bigger, I'm like, they got good food here. This is where you want to be right here, baby. That's how you know, man. Especially barbecue joints. And Amelia knows what I'm talking about. You get down there south of Knoxville and closer to Chattanooga, Nashville, you know, you walk in there, bro, and they got a couple chins on them. Sit down and grab you something to eat, man. That's the way it goes. Ain't nothing wrong with that, man. Ain't nothing. I'm not here body shaming. You kidding me? Let's see what else we got in the chat. You know what? Let's move on to the next topic. Of course, we'll hit on number one Packer fan, as he says, hell yeah, Clayton, LOL. There you go. All right. So the MSN article, y'all want to see me this one won't get me fired up yet. The MSN article, right? And you can kind of name the exact website. All that was showing up on mine, Jacob, was MSN. I'm sure they got kind of an underlink and it's geared around the Packers. But let's talk about that first article, man. What did it hit on that kind of got you thinking about it?
You're talking about the 5 players one?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then, you know, it's from A to Z Sports. Clayton told me not to mention the guy's name, but I just feel like his name's Wendell Ferreira. He's not.
Oh, yeah, no, Wendell's cool. Yeah, it's all good, man.
This one, I guess maybe he's more talking about the other one because
right.
You know what hat. So, but yeah, anyways, A to Z Sports, 5 players that the Packers could trade before the deadline. And like I said, he just broke it down real well. If you guys want to check it out, it's an article that was written yesterday. So, like I said, he just has 5 different players, and he gives a brief kind of explanation as to why it might be plausible or financially, you know, good, or just maybe matching the way that the Packers typically do things. So he does a disclaimer with number one. Number one is Jair Alexander. So before you freak out, he does put in a disclaimer here.
Calm down.
Everybody calm down. I'm not going to do
this. Is the scene where Michael Scott's running out of the building going,
all we can do is put on a brave face. We are screwed. All right, so he says nobody's stupid enough to say the Packers should give Jair Alexander away. Because that being said, this last year, the Los Angeles Rams offered 2 first-round draft picks for edge defender Brian Burns, which I believe he was still at Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, right? So that just shows you that teams are willing to pay if they feel like they want a player, right? So he goes on to talk about how the biggest reason that this could be beneficial, one, Jair Alexander has played like hot booty cheeks this year. Rasul Douglas has played by far better. You could argue that Nixon plays equally as good. You could argue, I would argue that I don't even want to tell you what I think about Jair. I've not been impressed. I haven't liked the attitude. We've talked about some of the comments he's made recently, and the guy's the highest paid, if I'm not mistaken, the highest paid cornerback basically in the NFL, or at least top 3. He is not playing like a top 50 cornerback right now. So to me, this is a little bit interesting. They talk about how in 2025, they'd open up $25.8 million in cap space. In 2026, another 27.86 with another 2.36 coming off on 2027. I don't know. It's intriguing. It's not something that I say I want to do or that I hope happens, but I will say that it's one of those that I want to see how Jair ends the season, because that'll definitely obviously be a massive indicator as to what I think going forward. But right now, you can't tell me that this guy is worth as much money as we're paying him. You could almost have this conversation about Kenny Clark too, although he's not one of these on the list. But what do you guys think about Jair and the possibility of moving on from him? If you could get 2 first-round draft picks, a first and a second, possibly, maybe a first and 2 seconds, you know what I'm saying? Like multiple years.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely one of those names, and I can't wait to hear your take on this too, Tim. He's definitely one of those names that would draw maximum compensation, I would think, right? Because he's known around the league as one of the best corners. The problem is he didn't perform like it last year, and he's darn sure not performing like it this year, right? So if you're telling me that his play, and I know none of us have a crystal ball, we can't see into the future, but if you're telling me his play is going to stay around about where it is right now, I'd be all about it because it's about what you do on the field, right? Plain and simple. Now, sometimes you can look at the PFF grades and watch the tape and go, I don't see it as bad as they do, right? And that's totally cool. That's the whole purpose of having multiple, what am I trying to say here? Multiple sources, right, of information, of statistics, of analytics. So you can kind of take everything, throw it in a pot and go, okay, here's the true story. Here's what's really going on. When you look at the tape, I showed you guys, Devontae cooking him off the line. Thank God Jimmy G didn't see it. Then you see him refusing to tackle on a play earlier this year that I absolutely roasted him for. And then, and of course, everybody said, well, maybe his back was hurt right there. Maybe it was. If your back's hurt to the point that you can't make a tackle, get the hell off the field. That's the way I feel. As a player, that's what I would want to do too. Like, I don't want to hurt my team just because of my ego, right? If I can't perform better than someone else on the bench, be a team player, let them know, hey, look, I can't do this. I'm going to be a liability. But then you see him get juked out of his shoes this last game, right? And there was people on Twitter immediately, Jacob, they're going, well, you pay him to cover. You don't pay him to tackle. No, you pay him to play defense.
Yeah.
The attitude of you pay him to cover, not tackle, is why you've got a bad run defense. And those same people that'll make a comment like that will go back and say it's Joe Barry's fault. You know what I mean? So with that being said, Jair, if his level of play stays the same, I'd be open to doing that in 2025. I imagine that's the first year we could probably get out of it. There's some kind of opt-out clause there too in the contract, if I remember correctly. But again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds with contracts. All I focus on is cap hit, right? That's the main thing I want to cover because you get into the ins and outs of understanding the contract completely, and you waste a whole lot of time for no reason at all. And but yeah, so for me with Jair, if the play stays the same, I'll be open to it. What do you think, Tim?
I agree with you, Clayton. I'm not quite there yet, as much as maybe some people are on that train. But 2025 is not that far off, and that's not a lot of time. I mean, Jair's got to make some changes, man. And it could start with attitude, but we all know who he is, and Jair is not gonna be soft-spoken or anything like that. So I'm okay if you talk the talk, but you have to walk the walk.
Bingo.
Like you said, you got to get it done in between the lines. And yes, part of being a leader is knowing when you physically can't do it. And to his credit, if the back is bothering him and he's trying to come back as soon as possible, he's making that effort. That's great. But if you can't get it done, you got to next man up. You got to be, do the call for someone or run to the sideline, get off the field, and don't come back until you're right. And if it doesn't improve, I mean, mainly because of the point you made, he is a big name and will draw some attention out there when it comes to getting the deal done. So I certainly think that's a possibility. However, I'm not quite there ready to say wholeheartedly, let's move on from him just yet. Got 12 games left this year.
Right.
I want to see the rest of this season. Maybe we put him on we put him on the J Love clock. We should know by the end of this year what it's looking like.
That's a good point. United Bates in the chat said Alexander's goofy interviews are great when he shows up, but maybe let's cut down on the quote show and focus a bit. Yeah, I'm with you, man. You hear us play it all the time, right? We always hit you with playing outside of his mind, but when you're not performing up to snuff, man, you know what I mean? Zip it, keep it in there, let it bounce around. As my 5th grade teacher once told me, that advice saved me so much trouble, man. I'm just telling you right now. Let it bounce around that head a little bit before it flies out of that skull of yours. That's what she told me. I went, I'll try that. All right. Let's see. You're too old for this in the chat. Says, I wouldn't be opposed to trading 23 if we got more than 65% chance at
65%. 65.
All right, there you go.
Jacob, I love it.
I get that boo in there. All right, let's see. This one right here, I thought a couple of them here. Number one Packer fans, sometimes people get a little full of themselves and their play shows it. Maybe that could be it. And then Goose, I'm gonna read it. He said, I think the shoulder injury really mellowed Jai out. He used to be a flesh missile when tackling. And of course, Mayo says flesh missile. Anyway,
I don't know
that's
how
it. Y'all gonna get us canceled tonight, but
Goose-
so
half of
Goose,
every one of Goose's comments, it's like starts and you're like, oh, this is going to be very analytical, and then all of a sudden it's like sexual innuendo. And you're
bang,
like,
there
how
it
did
is.
he
Yeah.
get both of them in there?
I'm gonna hire someone. I'm gonna put someone on the payroll just to read Goose's comments to make sure that and put a little check next to him on the screen. Okay, I can. Yeah, you try. You try. All right, you're over there laughing harder than anybody. Let's see. There was another one here too that I wanted to hit. I probably already lost it. Goose always screwing everything up. All right, we're at the 40-minute mark. Jacob, of those other four, let's mention all four of them, and then let's each make a comment on maybe one or two, and we'll go around the horn.
Yeah, I was going to say we can speed this up real quick. Number 2 is Preston Smith. Real quickly, they said they extended Smith last year, so they wouldn't have to pay much in cap space. Now we're on $600K plus $2.6 million next year. When the savings really start to accrue, would be in 2025, 2026. Most importantly, is that he is soon to be 31 years old. That's just not fitting in with what the Packers are trying to do. He is decent still at setting the edge, I believe, on certain plays. But you saw him, last week. I thought he played. Just off the top of my head, as I was just randomly watching, I'm like, oh, this is one of Preston's better games. He graded out horribly. You know what I mean? And so whatever reason, if we always say, don't take everything from PFF, take that with a grain of salt. But it's a little bit underwhelming, if I'm being honest. I love Preston Smith. I'm never gonna hate on a Packer for serving in the ranks and doing all that kind of stuff. But we do need to look at it with a little bit more, I guess, diagnosing eyes and be like, hey, was this worth the time, the money, the effort, the other people not playing in this position? Right now, I'm okay with maybe trying to move on after this year because we've got Gary, we've got LVM, we got Brenton Cox Jr., we got Enigbare, and who knows what we're going to do with some of these draft picks. So in my opinion, I'm okay with that one as well. But again, that's more of I'll give you till the end of the year. But
Gotcha. All right, so we got Preston Smith, Devondre Campbell, Josh Neisman, and A.J. Dillon on that list, right?
Yep.
Let's see. Let me hit the chat real quick here. Let's see. Number one Packer fan said, or could it be Joe Barry is an energy vampire and he's draining the soul out of the players? Goose says, I think we keep Preston one more year. He can be the second rotation pass rusher behind Gary and Lucas Van Ness. I think that's kind of the game plan, to be honest with you. And I'm with you, Jacob. When I watch the tape this year, I feel like Preston's having a better year this year than he did last year. But then again, there are some plays where he gets washed out, and it's not that he's getting overpowered. He's just getting too aggressive in his run gap, responsibilities. And that's where I think he's getting graded a little bit worse. And you got to really be careful with the PFF grade in that regard because they aren't in the meeting room, right? That's what I always tell people. Like, they don't know exactly what a player's told. Hey, if you get this look, right, if they're in a balanced 12 personnel and they motion the second tight end over, I want you to be aggressive inside. 90% of the time they run inside zone. I'm just speaking theoretically. This could be what's happening in the meeting room. 90% of the time when they shift that second tight end over and they go heavy like a strong left out of a 12 personnel, they run inside zone. Don't worry about the outside edge, shoot the gap, get inside. That could be, those type of things could be, being said in the meeting. We don't know. But I like the fact that you're never going to find PFF being like, well, they're too lenient on their grade. I feel like if anything, they're overly critical, and I would rather be on error on that side than the opposite. But Tim, out of those four players, obviously we mentioned Preston Smith, Devondre Campbell, Josh, and A.J. Dillon. Do you see anybody there that you could go, I could see them potentially trading him this year?
This year, trade,
well,
like as in
this year, next year, whenever.
As in like before October 31st, like trade deadline coming up.
No. The only one that makes sense, really, and I hate to say it, is it's Josh and possibly A.J. Dillon, depending on what our boy's going to do here. James Robinson, right? Is that his name?
Yep.
Yeah. If he comes in and he flashes on the practice squad, potentially there. But as far as A.J. Dillon, do you guys remember? If I remember correctly, the Colts were asking for him in the trade for Jonathan Taylor. So sometimes you got to read between the lines, right, Tim? But anyway, those four players. Do you see anybody?
A.J. Dillon could be one of those. I mean, but the one that jumps out to me would be Josh for sure. Yeah. And then I think with Campbell and Preston Smith, that's just a age and injury kind of thing. That's going to be what that is. It's nothing against those guys. I'd love to see Preston Smith retire a Packer, Devondre Campbell as well. But hey, can't make the club in the tub, right? So that may be, speaks for itself. But Yash would probably be the first one that pops out to me on that list.
Definitely.
I mean, we don't even utilize him, really. I mean, are we really utilizing him now?
No, not at all. Because it seems like going into this year, Yash was going to be battling for that right tackle spot with Tom, right? Well, Tom smokes him. And then, Yash is going to be our backup swing tackle, and Rashid passes him. So to me, Yash makes the most sense. He's on a 1-year deal. So is A.J. Dillon. So they only got 1 year left. I don't think the other three make sense this year. No chance of it. But as soon as I say that, we'll wake up tomorrow and 2 of them have been traded, right? But I think Yash and A.J., if it were up to me and you had to trade one, you had to pick one. Again, guys, we're not saying this. We're not trying to create rumors, just speaking theoretically here based off that article. The one that I would pick would be Yash. I think you can afford to let him go simply because, you're not going to bring him back next year, most likely, right? You got him on that tender this year. I think he's overpaid. I mean, that's another thing that Goody is screwed up on. You're talking about, I think, $4 million is what he is against the cap, and he's sitting on the bench. He's actually – it's going to take 2 injuries before he sees the field. That's bad management, man. And some of you might think, well, $4 million isn't anything. I disagree. There's such a thing as rollover cap. We can spend that $4 million next year too, right? You don't have to spend it this year. So just interesting, man. Definitely interesting for sure. Let's see. There was someone else in here. Murph said this. I think he was talking about Jair Alexander said, what is the percentage thrown in his direction? I don't have that answer, Murph, right offhand. I agree about the shoulder mellowed him out. I think as a team, tackling needs to be a major focus. More, it is a little bit of an issue, all 3 tiers on defense. It absolutely is. But, yeah, as far as percentage thrown at, I want to say it's probably not very high, right? But most of that, I think, is because teams have been able to run the football on us too, right? It's not like none of these teams have just came out and aired it out on us, right? And it's because of that quarters coverage, which is another reason, in my opinion, that Jair might not be – if you're going to stay in that quarters look as your base defense, as your kind of what your defense is built around, you're almost wasting them, right? And that's what I was talking about with the front office and how they've always drafted doesn't really marry up with the scheme that we're running right now. Goody was brought up in this West Coast offense family, to where you're drafting for 11 and in most cases, in some cases, 10 personnel, spreading it out, right? The West Coast spread. Now we're running this condensed West Coast wide zone boot. It doesn't gel very well together, I don't believe so. Let's see here. What else we got real quick, and then we'll get on to the next topic. Emilio in the chat says, team tackling needs to be, quote, eyes on the thighs, shout out, take your eye off the ball. We need to start wrapping up. Yeah, eyes on thighs, man.
Enough of this flying in with the shoulder, trying to hit all the time. Get these guys wrapped up, man. Although I hear they're trying to get rid of the hip or the drop hip tackles now. Did you guys see the blurb about that? They're reviewing that. Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence with that. Personally, but
I know you are, Tim. I love your text. It's funny because the picture they showed, Jacob, they showed a picture of a guy doing the hip drop tackle. And as soon as I seen it, I went, because you could just see that guy's ankle snapping, right? And it's like, at the same time, I'm going, man, come on, dude. This game is going to be unrecognizable. I get the concussion thing. Again, I was one of those guys that was totally against that. Like, shut up, play ball, you know the risk, blah, blah, blah. And then I watched the movie Concussion. And I cried like a damn baby. I was like, oh, man, I really need to step back and put some more thought into this.
Never watched that movie.
Bro, watch it.
I know, because I don't want to hate the NFL or football.
The courtroom scene, what you'll do is come away, yes, you'll have a little bit of dislike for the NFL, but you're going to come away with a lot more respect for the players, especially the ones that laid the foundation of this league, like your Mike Webster's, Patient Zero. Dude, the courtroom scene, I don't want to ruin it. But at the end, the courtroom scene, I was just like, tore me up, dude. Tore me up. Because for those of you who don't know, he was in so much pain, and it was mainly from the brain damage, right? Because he played in the pit. He was a center. And they played back when their helmets weren't much. It was right around the time that they really started to make the helmets extremely hard. so they didn't realize it was causing more damage than helping, really. But he was in so much pain, Jacob. He was homeless. This is a Hall of Fame center for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was homeless, living in his car, right, underneath a bridge in Pittsburgh. And one of his buddies went and saw him, a guy who later on committed suicide because of the brain damage he had. And he went and visited him, and he asked him what was wrong with his leg because he had a bunch of scars on his leg. He was in so much pain from the brain damage he couldn't sleep that he was using a stun gun to shock himself until he would pass out from the pain from that. It's pitiful, absolutely pitiful. So it'll just open your eyes a little bit more on that whole thing. But all right, let's move on to the last topic. We're up against the gun here. Jacob sent me an article. Like I said, we're not going to mention any names or anything because I ain't out here to get into a pissing contest with people. I'm going to give my take on it. It did irk me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to take this banner down real quick. So it's basically a write-up on Joe Barry. And one of the quotes he put in this article, and it might have even been the title, it was in the title, that Joe Barry gave a, quote, embarrassing excuse as to why Preston Smith was on Davante Adams, okay? And he's going to go into talking about Devondre Campbell, and I'm going to draw a couple things out here and show you why Devondre Campbell ends up in coverage. But he said, this is a quote from Barry, "If you're Preston, you almost have to just survive the down and try to keep to as minimal as you can. But that's a poor matchup for him to be in, and that's totally on me. For us to be able to put him in that situation, we've got to have a mechanism to get out of it. We just have to have a built-in check, which we will and we can do. But based on the personnel they were in, we never thought it would come up. It ended up being a bad play. That was me. It was not Preston." Okay, so I love that they like to pile on Joe Barry, but again, he's taking all the blame. He's absorbing all of this blame, right? Why isn't there already a mechanism? Barry's defense has been burned by this before. Rewind to week 1 of last season. Preston Smith found himself in a similar situation, matched up with all-pro wide receiver Justin Jefferson. It was far too easy for Jefferson. In the week 2 loss to the Atlanta Falcons this year, Barry had linebacker Devondre. Let me pause. As far as Preston Smith being in coverage on a wide receiver, we explained what that was. First of all, they're running the ball down your throat, right? And you're trying to stop the run. We were all screaming, just stop the run, load the box. How many people were saying it, guys? Load the box, load the box. I don't forget this playing off, put 8 in the box and stop the run. That's what they were doing with 34 base, jammed front, and they were bringing the safety down into the box as well. Okay, so you do that, and what do? They check and bring the wide receiver over. Well, if you're in a zone defense, the corner's going to stay on the boundary. Therefore, the edge defender, the will have to drop into coverage. That's why he was out there. Okay, so that's one of the negatives to doing exactly what these people wanted him to do, right? There's pros and cons to every decision you make on the football field, both offensively and defensively. We talked about with the condensed sets just earlier, right? The negative aspect of it. Same thing applies on defense. Now, he goes on and says, in the week 2 loss to the Atlanta Falcons this season, Barry had linebacker Devondre Campbell sit 10 yards off running back Bijan Robinson. The problem, it was 3rd and 3. Robinson picked up the easiest first down of his life. Think about how dramatic that comment is. He picked up the easiest first down. So you've watched every snap of his life. Got it, Chief. The easiest first down of his life, and the Falcons scored a game-winning field goal shortly after. And again, in a crucial moment, Smith had to cover Adams in the drive that cost the Packers victory against the Raiders. Barry's reasoning, well, we didn't expect them to do that. Matt LaFleur said after the Detroit Lions loss, I love how he's coupling all this in together as if that Matt LaFleur is talking about the same specific thing. You guys remember, what was Matt LaFleur commenting on there? Here's the comment, right? Here's the quote. It's insane to do the same things over and over again and expect a different result. He was talking about them getting burned by the run. Now, you see how the media will take that and couple it in as if he's talking about, well, you can't do the same things over and over, expect a different result. And he's talking about Preston Smith being in coverage. No, Preston Smith in coverage was the byproduct of you trying to stop the run, the very thing that Matt LaFleur is talking about right here. Like, and maybe he didn't do it intentionally. That's cool. That's why I'm not mentioning names. I'm not in here to get into an argument, but he was referring to the run defense. We can now say the same thing about Barry not having a mechanism to get them out of disastrous matchups like Preston Smith covering Davante Adams. All right, so with that being said, I'm going to show y'all something real quick. We've already talked about Preston Smith and why he ended up in coverage. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here, and we're going to bring this up. Hopefully everybody can see it well enough. And we're going to talk about that play to Devondre Campbell, okay? First of all, to the best of my knowledge, and it's kind of hard to see on the TV copy, I believe they were in 11 personnel. So what I did was I went back and looked at the TV copy, tried to line it up as perfect as possible, okay? This is what they were doing to stop the run. What I want you to notice here, in 11 personnel, the nose should actually be here. I apologize. They moved both in a nickel 2-4-5, they moved both the down linemen to the strong side, okay? So you notice how the left end is playing this. This would be what a 3 tech or maybe even a 4-eye. You had the nose up, or maybe even a 1 tech, because you're putting all this beef, all these heavy bodies on the strong side of the formation. All right, this is how you're going to stop the run. Another thing you did was you brung this linebacker up while putting Rashawn Gary, whoever the left edge was, out here in a wide 9. Right, so you take away the wide zone that the Atlanta Falcons like to run. These are the wide edges that that Coach McDaniel down there in Miami was talking about it on the play callers, how it's so hard to run against the Green Bay Packers outside. They're limiting the explosive plays in the running game, but like we're all complaining about now, they're bleeding you dry on each drive, right? Because they're taking everything little underneath in the middle. All right. So with this setup right here, imagine this. They break the huddle. They're in 11 personnel. You've been trying to stop the run. You're allocating all these resources. Notice the safety in the box on the Y, right? So here's what they did on that specific play. They flexed this Y out. Okay, you with me? If I remember correctly, they slid the slot in. You bring the Z over, right? So these guys have all got to react, right? You got a corner on the slot. You got a corner there. Now the safety is out here on the Y, right? And this is what they do. Now, keep this in mind, Jacob. What did everybody want this offseason? They got so tired of zone defense. What were they saying we need to change about this pass defense this last offseason?
Man.
We got to play man coverage, press man, bump and run, stop playing on the line, right? Here's what they did to counter it. They're running the ball down our freaking throat. Bang, 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 bang. We're in man coverage, okay? Notice how it's single high safety, right? Middle field close. They flex the T out, and you're in man coverage, okay? What's going to happen here? This linebacker has now got to play man coverage on the T. Got me? So with that being said, you're in single high, right? You're in single high. This safety's got to protect deep. He's got middle field, okay? Everybody is man coverage, man coverage, man coverage, man coverage, man coverage, and you're bringing 5. Got me? So that's the defense that's called. When they check to an empty 11 and they put the T out on the boundary, what's the other option? Because this is – I'm going to play devil's advocate here for just a second. Here's what you could do, right? Here are your options. You could take this linebacker and put him on someone else, right? You're not going to put a defensive lineman or an edge defender out there in coverage, correct? So what do you do if you're in man coverage here? Do you put the safety over here, right? Do you do that? Because if you put the safety over there, guess what happens? Let's put the safety on him. That means the linebacker's now covering Kyle Pitts. Got me? So you're not going to do that. So you get caught in this look, right? Because you're playing man coverage, being aggressive, trying to stop the run, basically playing run blitzes along the way, right? The only way to counter this is back Devondre up and try to prevent that deep shot. Now, if you're asking me, how do you fix that? What's the best counter? You were never in the counter, in my opinion. And I'm going to tell you what that means. If you were in zone defense, which is what Joe Barry was brought here to run, but for whatever reason, we've, bailed on it from time to time because people were just so caught up in corners and safeties playing so far off the ball. If you were playing your normal zone defense, here's what can happen now. All right. If you're in zone, got me? This guy can cheat in here. The corner can play out here. Now you're playing drop or you're playing man match. You're playing zone match, I should say. You see what I'm saying? Now these guys have got zone with zone match principle, with man principles, right? Deep to out, right? This guy's patrolling the center. If the slot clears, then the safety will pick him up and take him, right? And this linebacker can work underneath. So imagine if they were in a zone defense here and you were just in your simple, let's call it cover 3 zone match defense. All right. If that was the look, let me get these deleted real quick. If that was the case over here, what was the play that they ran? All right. The play called was they were kind of stretching it out underneath, right? A little snag concept, right? If that's the case, here's what would have happened on that play. If and then, right? You would have seen our boy, whoever the corner is right here, playing off a little bit, which people don't like. And the reason they're playing off is so they can read this route, right? So he's going to be looking. If this guy goes underneath, I'll let him go. If this guy doesn't cross the 7-yard threshold, this guy being the T and Bijan Robinson, then his job is to pick up the Z and cover deep zone. Deep, depending on what everybody does underneath. You got a linebacker playing underneath. He can come underneath on the snag as well. That's what's so beneficial to this type of defense from Vic Fangio, right? And again, we get so impatient because teams, will be able to hammer a curl route, right? When it's a 3rd and 7 and they'll catch it at 5 yards and get the first down. Like, well, why they're playing so far off? This is what they're trying to prevent. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's why I'm a fan of the Fangio style, because it's going to play more conservative, right? Keep everything in front of you. When you go man coverage, not even zero man, single high man, and you put that T out on the boundary, there's not another person on that field that should have covered him. The only other option would be and all this happens literally in 5 seconds. Split second, you got to make the adjustment if you do. Bring the safety down on the T, and now you've got Devondre Campbell playing deep safety. If you're going to try to convince me that's a good idea, I'm sorry. I'm not. Take that Kirby down the street. I ain't buying it, man. So, I don't know, Jacob. Does that make sense, too?
I think I put a quarter in Clayton. I don't think.
Again, it's not a great look. And y'all have never heard me say Joe Barry's a good defensive coordinator. But there's an answer to every question. And because Joe Barry is the bigger man, and he says, yeah, that's my fault. We got to have a check. Yeah, we got to, he damn well knows that if they come out and they go muddle huddle and they flex that T out, you've got less than 5 seconds to make the adjustment. If you do go to that check, how quick can Devondre Campbell get inside the safety, get down on him? They quick snap it. Everybody's out of position and all hell breaks loose. Right?
So maybe that's what I was going to just ask. Chris N just commented, Clayton, what was Barry talking about when he said there's a solution to this, but that they haven't implemented yet? That kind of what he just talked about.
Yeah, the only solution you would have is to, in my opinion, check the zone. Check the zone.
Yeah.
When you see them flex the T out, hey, whatever, zebra, safety sprints over or the corner sprints over, everybody get in your shell look. Don't go 2 on the shelf, still show the single high look and play cover 3 zone match. That would be the check. The problem is they're running the ball down your throat, and then all of a sudden defense is tired, hands on hips, right? They break the huddle real quick. The T flies out there. That check has to happen the second they break the huddle. Now, I personally think there's probably a check already there. That's just me. But I think the way they're looking at it is, look, we've got to stop the run. Let's stay in this look until they score, right? And of course, they went down the field and they did score and win. So if he stops it right there, right, if they don't run that snag concept and they stop it there, nobody's even talking about the fact that Devondre Campbell was out there on him. But because they converted that underneath and he was so open, Joe Barry's a moron, a guy who spent his entire life in football. That just cracks me up, man. Well, people need to understand that write articles like this. The absolute dog crap worst coaches in the NFL, the worst coaches in college football know 1,000 times more football than you who are writing that article, than me who's sitting there doing a podcast. And it's mind-boggling that they can throw a quote out there and say it's an embarrassing excuse. Like, get the hell away from me, dude. It blows my mind. It does. So, go ahead, Jacob. Thoughts?
No, I mean, you basically said everything that I thought you were going to say. When I said this over this morning, I was like,
my face is mission accomplished.
I was like, this is going to be good. I thought about it. I was like, man, this will take as much content time as we need, because I'm sure Clayton will have plenty to say about this.
And, the only other thing, too, like in that 11 personnel, again, I keep coming back to zone. If you want to stop the run, go with a little heavier look and play zone, right? Because linebackers can cover in zone. It's not ideal on a tight end like Pitts, but you can put yourself – like I like the idea of Quay covering Pitts in a zone match look, right? I think he can hold his own. Not on a deep route, not on a deep corner, but that's the beautiful thing about zone match. If he runs that deep corner, then your safety is going to match that and attack the corner, right? It's just everybody's looking for here's the answer to the question, and it's not that simple. You heard Mike Wall, right, on the pod when he brought it up. Everybody wants to mention Preston Smith in coverage, and he's like, and he kind of cut himself off like that's the other thing too. They're making it sound like this doesn't happen. Guys, I challenge everyone. Go into the NFL database, right? Use your favorite site and go find 34 defenses. Who all runs a 3-4 base defense? Now I want you to try to not be biased and go find their schedule and say, okay, out of everybody on their schedule, who is a run-heavy offense, right? And whoever the run-heavy offense is, go watch the tape. I guarantee you will probably find you'll find more than 3 this year already where an outside linebacker gets matched up on a wide receiver, a flex tight end, or a T that's flexed out. Because that's what happens with a 34 base. It's exactly what Mike Wall was saying. But I know people like this will look at Mike Wall and go, he doesn't know what he's talking about. What the hell? Come on, dude. So, Tim, you got any questions on that? You got any comments about? Am I losing my mind for no reason?
No, you're not. And it's the same way people talk about these players too, man. We get hard on these players sometimes, and it's like, dude, the worst. And
I've been guilty of that, bro.
We all have. But I mean, the worst guy in the NFL is, had this much of a chance to make it to where he is. So never forget just how difficult it is to do this job at that level. But I would tend to agree with what you're saying there, Clayton. And I'm just going to continue to take notes and try and learn because, I'll just put it this way. We know people say things for clicks. We know people write headlines a certain way. That's why they call it clickbait. Mm-hmm. But not everything falls in that category. And a lot of times you can find good content that's, smashed in between a bunch of clickbait type stuff. But realistically, that's why people say the things that they say, Clayton, because they know we're gonna break it down, and that's exactly why I love Jacob for pulling those every once in a while and putting another quarter in a machine.
It's funny because like they have rode this Joe Barry thing out. I mean, almost it's almost milk dry. Like seriously, that those are some chapped knees, my man, because everybody they continue to write about it because they know that's going to get, you can just go on Twitter and you'll see it. You just type in Joe Barry on Twitter and it'll be this guy's a moron. He don't know what he's doing. He thinks Preston Smith. I love how they worded it in there too. That like they made it sound as if that's the matchup that Joe Barry drew up. Like, let's put Preston Smith on Devontae Adams. What is this guy thinking? What are you talking about?
Preston Shadow and Devontae all night.
Yeah, exactly. Following Tay. Let's see here. This is what gets me to the number one Packer fan. I thought that's why they brought Barry in to run Fangio's defense, or am I wrong? That's 100% why they brought him in. But the problem is the other team gets paid too, and there are ways of beating the Fangio system. Watch Vic Fangio in Miami this year, guys. Not doing too good. Not doing too good down there, right?
Because have one of the best offenses in history. It would look a lot different right now.
Exactly. I'd like to see where they're ranked here. Let me look. I actually pulled it up here. If you go opponent yards per play, Green Bay is ranked 10th right now at 4.9. They're actually tied for 9th, as a matter of fact. So in yards per play, I like to look at points per play and yards per play because it removes a lot of the noise, right? And that's a big, big, big gambling statistic. There's a lot of gamblers that lean on those when you're trying to determine how good a defense actually is, right? Because if you go points per game, it's important, just like all information is important. If you go points per game, there's a lot of things you'd have to go back and watch all the tape and go, well, that team started with a short field 3 times that game. That's a little bit skewed. Maybe the defense is better than we're giving them credit for. But when you go per play, points, and yards, again, yards per play, they are not. And to put that into perspective, right, 4.9 in 2022, they were 5.8. That's how much better they've gotten. So to put that into perspective, where they were last year in opponent yards per play, they would rank, check this out, they would rank 30th this year.
Wow.
So they've went from 30th to 10th this year. That's how much it's improved. But nobody wants to give them credit because Preston Smith got caught in a bad look in the 34th base and they flexed the T. Fire everybody. It's crazy. It blows my mind. So to put that into perspective, let's look. I'd like to see where Miami's at. I haven't even looked. Miami's 19th. Vic Fangio is 19th in opponent yards per play. Joe Barry is 10th. So maybe it's a combination of a lot of things. Maybe it's something that we refer to on this podcast as game flow. And it's why we do chalk talk in game flow, right? What did Goose do? You're over here laughing.
Too old for this when he said, let's see where Miami's at. He said, Miami's in Florida.
My man. Dad jokes. I love it.
Wow.
Let's see here. Goose said, we absolutely need an answer to them lining wide receivers versus Preston, but people acting like it should never happen haven't actually understood what's happening on the field. Absolutely. There's no point that you're going to hear me go, I'm cool with Preston covering Tay. No. But I tell you what you talked about a check, Jacob. I'll tell you what the other answer was.
Yeah, right.
Burn a timeout. God forbid you give your defense a break there, right? Just for a second. Hey, let's regroup. Hey, all right, look, guys, if they go to that, that's the first time they showed it, right? That's the first time they showed it in the game. If they show that look again, here's the check. And Savage, you call it out, or Quay, you, whoever, the fourth string linebacker that's playing right now. People, that's the other thing, too. Look at the injuries we've had on this team, too, on this defense. Think about that. And they're still performing at that level. When are we going to give Joe Barry credit for that, right? Now, again, in points per play, they're like 17th, but they're still, when I looked at the number, according to where they would be last year, I think it was 23rd. So they've moved up from 23rd to 17th. So, yeah. Let's see. We got Emilio in the chat says Quay was also not on the field at the time. Preston was out wide, and he's the general with the dot. Think about that.
Yep.
That's a great point, Emilio. I didn't pay attention to that on the tape. But, yeah, that's something that comes into play too, man, for sure. Let's see what else we got. What are you laughing at, Jacob? I'll put it up on there.
Just reading the banter between Goose and Emilio and just a bunch of weird stuff.
Never mind.
Yeah, it's not worth putting up. Trust me.
We'll have to hit the conspiracy video if we go down that route. We had a little bit of a conspiracy segment for you guys, but we ran out of time.
Let's save it for tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll save it tomorrow. I'm sure you guys have heard about it, but that's just a funny situation for sure. Let's see what Goose said. Goose said, Clayton, we got to save those timeouts for getting to the line too late on offense. Sarcasm is thick in here tonight. That's another thing too, man. Like going into this season, you guys heard so many people say, I'm so sick of watching Rodgers run it down to the last second. I was just sitting back like this going, y'all really convince yourself that's going to change. Not going to happen. I am really, it's mind-boggling to me, though, how little motion there is. I need to go back and do a case study on that and try to chart how much motion, because I'm about 99% sure we're running less motion this year than we did last year. We're just choosing to do post-snap motion, post-snap shift, or sifting and things like that. And that's what I was trying to say with Mike Wall, but Mike Wall cut me off, and which kind of goes hand in hand with the defensive talk here too. But I told him, I said, what I noticed on the San Francisco tape was they didn't sift it all, but they're using pre-snap motion, getting the player to where the sift is going to end at, and just starting fresh right there. And he went, Clayton, but hold up a minute. We don't have George Kittle blocking on this team. He said, we don't have Kyle Juszczyk blocking on this team. And he said, we darn sure don't have a Trent Williams right now either blocking on this team. And I immediately thought, man, Goody just keeps getting off the hook. Anyway, let's wrap it up, guys. Jacob, what you got, man?
Nothing. I'm good. I'm ready to get back at it. This bye week has been kind of weird, man. It's put me in a weird kind of like a lull.
Yeah.
It's good to see that. Hopefully, I don't know, man. I don't want to be negative. I want to keep trying to be positive and like. There's no reason.
I don't think we were negative, were we? Do you think?
No. I'm just saying, like my personal. For some reason, I'm fighting these demons where it's like like for instance today.
Hold on a minute. I got something for you. Keep talking. Keep going.
Looking at the different interviews, and the one that I wanted to watch that I should have watched, but I thought was beneficial. The Matt LaFleur one, but I clicked on it, and after looking at him for like 2 seconds, I went, I don't even want to hear you talk. I don't even want to listen to you right now. So like I have to work on that for whatever reason.
Jacob fighting them demons. I had to give him some creepy music.
Theme music.
Sorry. Oh my God. Hey, one thing's for sure though, guys. We did learn earlier this year, right? That
the Bears are who we thought they were. And that's why we took the damn field.
Damn well said there, Denny.
Did you guys hear the Ryan didn't even talk about it, but at the beginning of his podcast today, it must have been this random group of Bears fans that they did a spoof of "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend." It was just about them talking about how the Bears suck still.
For real,
it was like weirdly. It was very well done. They harmonized beautifully, but like and they did like the first 3 or 4 like lines in the song and the chorus and everything. And oh man, you guys got to go listen to it, because I literally was gonna call Ryan or text him and be like, "Can I cut that and use it as the intro to one of our podcasts?" Because that thing was beautiful, man. You guys got to listen to it.
Goose in the chat says, "Have you tried seducing your demons instead?" Oh my god. I love it. All right. And then number one Packer fan said, "Just to let you know, I'm a Hollywood plant." He knows what we were going to talk about. Here I'm the number one Packer fan, but everywhere else I'm a fan too. Man, that cracked me. Did you guys watch the McAfee show today?
I saw the clip.
Yeah. Bro, that opening was hilarious. Boston Connor went to the Capitol and gave a speech. I love that show, man. It's so outrageous. It's just, you want to just unplug from the real world for a minute and just laugh. Like, I don't know. I love it, man. I love what they do over there. So,
did you ever see? It's the most iconic clip of that show where, like, the 8-year-old kid calls in. Originally, they're giving him. And the kid goes, "I just want to let you guys know that you're an inspiration." And then, F Boston sports. Oh, and they're like, Max, I want to tell you, you're a legend, buddy. You're a legend.
I love how when he first called into the way when they realized who it was or whatever. Basically, his dad called in. His dad's name was Dan, right? And he goes, "All right, let's go to Dan." Anyway, "I'm not Dan, I'm Owen." And Pat could tell it was a kid. Pat went, Mitt, because Mitt was screening the calls. He was like, "Hey, you told me this was," and he went, "Yeah, I just want to let you guys know that you're inspiring people talking about sports." And literally, well, first of all, Pat was trying to cut him off and get him off the line, and AJ Hawk, being the toxic person, he said, "No, let him go. What you got, buddy?
Talk about, buddy."
Yeah. So then he hits that pause, man. The way he paused and said, "Oh yeah, F Boston Connor." Oh my god, dude, absolute gold. And you should have seen the media, bro. The media roast. Can't believe they're allowing this foul language and kids talking like this on this show. And now they've got their disclaimer with ESPN where they basically have the Lou Holtz voice that comes out and says, "You will hear curse words on here because that's how real humans in the world talk." Love it. Love it. So, all right. We're out here. It's been off the rails for a while. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Look, United Bates said Owen. Stephen Smith said little Owen. Like the Bears are 0-1.
Drop the mic.
Give me that drum. All right, we're out of here, guys. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. Do want to give a special shout out to my man Boz. Thank you so much for the super chat, dude. We can't thank you enough. We really appreciate you supporting the stream. You guys were awesome in the chat, so thank y'all for taking time to hang out with us. I'm going to reach out to Paul Brettel, see if we can get him on the show tomorrow so we can get a little more educated on what's going on around the Packers, and hopefully he's free to do that. But we'll be back tomorrow, either 6 Central or 7 Central, somewhere around that range. We'll let you guys know as early as possible. But again, thank y'all for hanging out with us. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world, and go Pack Go.
The power sweep. Actually, it's the lead play in our offense.
Double tackle, take the defensive end. If he's over him, if he's not, you drive down the first man who is inside. Pull back and tell him. Take the first man outside the offensive tackle. No one goes. Go right by them and field inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. So look at this play. What we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the